Rachel Marie Runyan was born on June 23, 1979, in Weber County, Utah, the second child and only daughter of Jeff and Elaine Runyan. She had an older brother, Justin, and a younger brother, Nathan. The Runyan family had moved to Sunset from Tennessee just before Rachel's birth. Her mother would later recall she and her husband had believed that Sunset, a community of 6,000 people, would be a wonderful and safe place to raise their children. Rachel was a child beauty queen, having been crowned Little Miss Sunset just a year before her murder. She has been described by her mother as a well-behaved child who, often being too young to participate in the games with Justin and other children, was content to simply sit aside and suck her thumb, watching the children play. Despite the sense of security Jeff and Elaine Runyan felt within the community of Sunset, both parents repeatedly warned their children of the dangers of trusting anybody that they didn't know. The family lived in a modest home adjacent to the Doxey Elementary School playground. In the late morning of August 26, 1982, Rachel Runyan and her 5-year-old brother Justin asked their mother if they and their younger brother Nathan, age 18 months, could play in the playground of Doxey Elementary School. Although Elaine had never allowed her children to play unsupervised anywhere outside the family home, she was preparing lunch for her children when they made the request. And since the playground was just 15 feet from her home, well within sight of her kitchen window, she agreed to it. Nonetheless, Elaine looked repeatedly out the kitchen window and conversed with her children as she prepared the meal. When she called her children to lunch at approximately 12:55 p.m., only Nathan and Justin returned home. Justin blurted out to her that Rachel had been taken from the park by force moments before by a young black man who had initially offered to buy her ice cream and bubblegum at a nearby supermarket. According to Justin, the man had approached them as they played in the sandpit, attempting to lure the siblings into his car with an offer to purchase candy for the trio. Justin said that when he warned Rachel not to accompany the man any further, she began to turn and walk away from him. In response, the man simply picked Rachel up, placed her over his shoulder, and while she was screaming, put her into his car. Justin stood frozen in fear, with Nathan standing by his side. Elaine rushed to the supermarket the kidnapper had mentioned, repeatedly asking staff and shoppers, "Have you seen a little blonde girl? A 3-year-old with a black man?" Nobody she encountered had seen her child. Approximately 20 minutes after her daughter's disappearance, Elaine reported Rachel's abduction to the Sunset Police Department. Immediately upon learning of Rachel's abduction, the Sunset Police Department set up roadblocks in and around the city. This tactic failed to help the police apprehend the suspect or to recover Rachel. In the hours following her abduction, a task force consisting of 10 law enforcement investigators was formed to investigate the child's disappearance. These investigators were recruited from several Utah counties and supervised by Sheriff Brant Johnston. Both Justin Runyan and a 10-year-old child who had also been approached by the man at the playground described him to investigators as being a light-complexioned African American, aged between 30 and 35 years old, 6 feet tall with a medium build, an Afro-style haircut, and a handlebar mustache. He drove an older model 4-door dark blue car with wood grain stripes along the sides. The man had been at the park talking to various children and drinking coffee for at least 15 minutes before abducting Rachel. Investigators also discovered this individual had played with the 3 Runyan children for several minutes before they had gone with him part way to his vehicle. Although eyewitness memory enabled police to obtain an accurate physical description of the child's abductor, from which they were able to construct a detailed composite drawing, the only witnesses to Rachel's abduction had been the 3 children. No CCTV had captured her abduction from the school grounds. As such, beyond police and media appeals, subsequent law enforcement efforts were effectively limited to procedures like forensic searches of the crime scene and house-to-house inquiries in the days and hours after the event. Public appeals for information about Rachel's disappearance did lead to investigators receiving multiple leads. Although all leads were vigorously pursued, they ultimately proved fruitless. With the assistance of friends and neighbors, the Runyan family searched local neighborhoods and distributed thousands of missing persons posters and flyers, alerting the public to Rachel's disappearance. Within 3 weeks, this initiative had cost the family $10,000 in postage expenses alone. 1 week after Rachel's abduction, her parents flew to New York to attend a press conference intending to maintain the publicity surrounding their daughter's disappearance. At this press conference, Jeff Runyan said, "I feel the abductor is without conscience, and my plea is for someone who knows him to come forward and sell him out." Acknowledging the possibility Rachel might have been sold following her abduction, Elaine Runyan urged all parents planning on adopting a little girl in the near future to ensure the child was not Rachel. On September 3rd, Rachel's parents appeared on the Today Show to continue to publicize Rachel's disappearance. They offered a $20,000 reward, raised largely through donations from concerned citizens in their community. The city of Sunset also pledged an additional $20,000 for the child's safe return. At 5 p.m. on September 19th, a family traveling on a mountain road in Mountain Green, Utah, approximately 50 miles from Sunset, stopped their vehicle at a turnout close to Trappers Loop Road to let their children play at a nearby stream. Close to a pile of brush, the children observed what they initially believed was a doll, partly covered in shrubbery, floating at the edge of the stream. On closer inspection, the children realized the doll was actually the nude body of a female toddler, with her hands bound behind her back. Due to the advanced state of the body's decomposition, the precise cause of Rachel's death was never established. The coroner was unable to exclude smothering as the cause of death. Shortly after formal identification of their daughter, Jeff and Elaine Runyan held Rachel's funeral service at the Sunset Stake Center. Over 300 mourners were in attendance. Rachel was laid to rest in Washington Heights Memorial Park in Ogden, Utah. She was buried in a white casket adorned with her photograph, a single pink rosebud, and one of her favorite Raggedy Ann dolls. Rachel's gravestone is inscribed with the words, "She brought a nation to its knees." As a result of this abduction and murder, the state of Utah formally implemented the Rachel Alert System in April 2002. It was designed to alert residents statewide of active child abduction and missing children cases. Once law enforcement personnel verified the authenticity of a child abduction case, a Rachel Alert form was faxed to all television and radio networks for immediate and high-priority statewide broadcast. Utah replaced the Rachel Alert System with the Amber Alert System in April 2003, primarily to conform with nationwide standards. The Amber Alert System is now tested twice a year in Utah, on January 13th and on the anniversary of Rachel's abduction, August 26th. Rachel's murder was also a factor in the passing of the Missing Children's Act, which places descriptions of missing children in the FBI's National Crime Information Computer Database. Although Rachel's murder is an unsolved case, Lieutenant Phil Olmsted, who first answered Elaine Runyan's frantic call for assistance following her daughter's abduction, continually assured the Runyan family of the department's determination to find Rachel's murderer. The investigation into her murder was officially reopened by the Sunset Police Department in 2007. Police continue working closely with the Utah Attorney General's office in their efforts to apprehend and convict the perpetrators. A reward of $58,000 is available should any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible be provided to authorities. Hopes for the identification of the perpetrator rest primarily on notable advances in forensic technology in the year since 1982. As a means to this end, investigators have not ruled out the possibility of exhuming Rachel's body to retrieve further forensic evidence. DNA testing conducted on items found near Rachel's body in 2007 yielded tentative results, although they have not helped advance the investigation. Rachel's family has never given up hope her killer will be found. In 2012, investigators announced that a prison inmate in Pennsylvania who had been a resident of Sunset in 1982 was under active investigation. Although no formal charges have been filed against this individual, he is considered a possible suspect in Rachel's abduction and murder. Another potential is a man with a criminal record who is believed to live in New Mexico. Sunset Police Chief Ken Eborn has said that evidence supports the potential guilt of this suspect, but it is insufficient for police to make a formal arrest. Furthermore, Eborn has said he is convinced that witnesses or individuals with knowledge of the man's guilt are reluctant to come forward to authorities. Following her daughter's abduction and murder, Elaine Runyan Simmons channeled her grief into action, becoming an outspoken advocate in a national movement to raise awareness of issues regarding child safety, child abduction, and the legislative process regarding their recovery. She has frequently offered emotional support, guidance, and advice to parents undergoing a similar experience to her family's ordeal. Regarding her ongoing commitment to the expansion of Utah's Rachel Alert, now known as the Amber Alert system, Elaine has said that being a voice in this field of advocacy is not a choice she would have made had Rachel not been abducted and murdered. In 2013, she stated, "It's a legacy I leave for my daughter. If there was something in place like this in 1982, maybe we'd still have her."